events, and issues shaping our community. This is Comcast Newsmakers.
That oil spill coming from an open pipe 1 mile below the Gulf of Mexico is being called the worst environmental disaster in U.S. history. The oil mass is drifting, affecting wetlands along the Gulf Coast and beaches in the Florida Panhandle. Dr. Robert Cowen is the Associate Dean of Research at the University of Miami School of Marine and Atmospheric Science. He's here to tell us how this spill will affect our region's ecosystem. And thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
A lot of speculation on this, and of course it's heartbreaking to see what's happening to the wildlife in the area when you see the pelicans and all the birds covered with oil. What does this mean short-term, long-term as far as the ecosystem throughout the Gulf Coast and in Florida?
Well, a lot of the short-term is already evident with the oil at the surface, and it's, as you just mentioned, its effect on things that we can see really easily, the birds and even some of the turtles and things of that nature. As it gets into the coast, then it soils the vegetation, which we know is also important for the ecosystem, nursery habitat for a lot of our fisheries. It's what's, even within the short term, there's a lot that we can't see from the surface that can be affecting the different stages of life of fish and other organisms that we both deem important and as economic resources. It can affect the survival of those different stages. It can affect and coat the nursery areas, and that some of those effects will also continue into the long term, because the oil, once it covers some of these habitats and can destroy some of them, it can have a very long-term effect.
What does that mean for the fish in the Gulf Coast? And we're talking about a very large area there where the fish migrate through and probably even reproduce.
Well, it can certainly, as fish are passing through, they can potentially be affected if some of the oil's in the water column from some of the food they may eat. That might, and some large fish that actually filter the water might have damage to their gills, and that has direct effects. A lot of the fish, whether they migrate there or not, but they are reproducing there, their young go up into the water and they're feeding on small plankton, which the oil itself and possibly the dispersants could have direct immediate effects. So you could lose a year class, that'd be sort of that year spawning. But because it can also cover some of the nursery habitat with the thicker tar, or the hydrocarbons can go in and destroy some of the marsh and mangrove area, that will have a longer term effect.
And longer term, what does that mean? Does that mean that we'll see like less fish out there, or species of fish being eliminated? I
think probably we'll definitely see, at least in some locales, a reduction in the numbers of fish that have survived. You may see that over a couple of years. What we don't know a lot about this is the oil that's deeper, and to what degree that might periodically, say through a large storm, be turned back up and then brought back to the surface or into shallow water and brought inshore. And that sort of event could... So
we're talking not just 1 or 2 years, we're talking maybe 10 years down the road.
I've heard, again, we're in uncharted territory to a certain regard, but there's a potential for some very long-term sort of resuspension of some of the oil itself.
Now, when we're talking about the oil, we're talking oil at different depths, right? Because this is a mile down.
That's right.
So we don't even know where this oil is going or what's it's affecting, right? If anybody's fishing in that area, do these fish need to be tested from now on to make sure they're suitable for human consumption?
Well, I think it's probably prudent to test it. I think the bigger concern is not so much contamination of the flesh itself. It's going to be more direct effects through loss of critical habitat, or say the young stages of fish coming in direct contact.
All right, well, thank you very much. There's not much we can do about the oil spill, but we can take personal responsibility by learning 5 easy steps to go green. Head to Comcast On Demand and select Get Local. I'm Spiro Kent.